The sun was setting over the dusty farmland when 15-year-old Lily heard her father's voice boom through the small wooden house. She was in the kitchen, peeling potatoes for dinner, trying to keep her weight off her weak left leg. That leg had been her curse since she was 7, when a farming accident left it twisted and painful. "She's no good to us anymore," her father shouted from the front room. "Can't work the fields proper. Can't fetch water without spilling half of it. What's the point of feeding a mouth that gives nothing back?" Lily's hands trembled as she continued peeling. She had heard these words before many times. But tonight something in her father's tone was different. There was a finality to it that made her stomach twist with fear. Her mother's soft voice replied, barely audible, "She's our daughter, Robert. She tries her best." "Her best ain't good enough," her father snapped back. "We got 5 other children to feed. The crops failed again. The bank's breathing down our neck. We need money, not another useless mouth." Lily pressed herself against the wall, trying to make herself invisible. She knew the farm was in trouble. Everyone in their small community was struggling. The drought had lasted 3 summers now, and their land was turning to dust. But she never imagined what her father would say next. "I talked to the Hendersons in town," her father continued. "They need a girl to work in their house. They'll pay good money, enough to keep the bank away for another year. They'll take her next week." The potato fell from Lily's hand and hit the floor with a soft thud. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. They were sending her away. Selling her away, more like it. Trading their own daughter for money to save a piece of land. Her mother's voice rose slightly. "Robert, she's just a child. The Hendersons live 3 days away by train. We'll never see her." "Then we won't see her," her father said coldly. "Better than all of us starving or losing the farm. It's decided. Start packing her things." Lily heard footsteps and quickly pretended to be busy with the potatoes. Her mother walked into the kitchen, her face pale and streaked with tears. When their eyes met, her mother looked away quickly, unable to hold her gaze. "Mama," Lily whispered, her voice breaking. Her mother rushed to her and pulled her into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I tried to change his mind, but you know your father. Once he decides something—" "Don't send me away," Lily begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Mama, I'll work harder." "I'll do anything." "I won't eat as much, please." Her mother held her tighter, her own body shaking with sobs. "It's not about working harder, sweet girl. It's never been about that. Your father, he's always been hard on you because of your leg. He sees it as a weakness, as something shameful. But you're not weak, Lily. You're the strongest person I know. But strength didn't matter when you had no power." Lily learned that lesson over the next week as she watched her mother pack her few belongings into a small cloth bag. 2 dresses, both faded and patched. A pair of worn shoes. A thin blanket. A small wooden horse that her older brother had carved for her years ago, back when the family still had moments of kindness. Her younger siblings didn't understand what was happening. Her little sister, only 6 years old, kept asking when Lily would come back. Lily couldn't answer. She didn't know if she would ever come back. The night before she was to leave, Lily barely slept. She lay on the straw mattress she shared with her sisters, staring at the ceiling, trying to memorize every crack and stain. This house, with all its poverty and hardship, was still her home. These people, despite everything, were still her family. Morning came too quickly. Her father had already arranged for a neighbor to drive them to the train station in his wagon. Lily sat in the back, holding her small bag on her lap, watching her home get smaller and smaller as they rode away. At the train station, her father spoke to her for the first time in days. "You'll work hard for the Hendersons. Don't embarrass us. Don't come back unless you're bringing money." Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. Her mother hugged her one last time, pressing a small bundle into her hand. "It's bread and cheese for the journey," she whispered. "And there's something else in there. Open it when you're alone." The train whistle blew. Her father practically pushed her toward the train car. Lily climbed aboard, her weak leg making the steps difficult. She found a seat by the window and pressed her face against the glass. Outside, her mother stood crying, one hand raised in farewell. Her father had already turned away, heading back to the wagon. He didn't look back once. The train lurched forward, and Lily watched her mother's figure grow smaller and smaller, until she was just a tiny dot, and then nothing at all. The countryside rolled past, familiar fields giving way to unfamiliar landscapes. Lily opened the bundle her mother had given her. Inside, wrapped in a cloth napkin, were the bread and cheese. But there was something else, too. A small silver locket that had belonged to her grandmother. Lily had seen her mother wear it only on special occasions. Inside the locket was a tiny picture of her mother as a young girl, and a lock of Lily's baby hair. A note was tucked inside, written in her mother's careful handwriting. You are not useless. You are loved. Never forget who you are. Your mama. Lily clutched the locket to her chest and let the tears flow freely. The other passengers glanced at her but looked away quickly, uncomfortable with her grief. She was just another poor girl, alone on a train going to a destination she didn't choose. The journey took 2 days. Lily slept sitting up, afraid to miss her stop. She rationed the bread and cheese, not knowing when she would eat again. The train passed through towns she had only heard about in stories, crossed rivers wider than any she had ever seen, and climbed through hills that grew into mountains. Finally, the conductor called out her destination. Lily gathered her bag and stepped off the train into a town that was bigger and busier than anywhere she had ever been. She stood on the platform, lost and frightened, until a stern-looking woman in a black dress approached her. Are you the girl from the Miller farm? The woman asked. Yes, ma'am, Lily replied quietly. I'm Lily. The woman looked her up and down with obvious disapproval. I'm Mrs. Henderson. You'll call me ma'am or Mrs. Henderson, nothing else. Follow me and try to keep up despite that leg of yours. I won't tolerate slowness. Lily followed, limping as quickly as she could, her small bag clutched in both hands. Behind her, the train pulled away, the last connection to her old life disappearing in a cloud of steam and smoke. She was truly alone now, sold away by the people who were supposed to protect her, walking toward an unknown future with strangers who had already decided she was useless before even giving her a chance. But in her pocket, hidden from view, the silver locket pressed against her side, a reminder that at least one person in the world believed she had worth. Lily held on to that thought as she followed Mrs. Henderson through the crowded streets, trying to be brave even though her heart was breaking into 1,000 pieces. The Henderson mansion looked like a palace to Lily. 3 stories tall, with white columns and gleaming windows, it stood on a hill overlooking the town. But as beautiful as it appeared from the outside, Lily would soon learn that beauty could hide cruelty. Mrs. Henderson led her around to the back entrance. Servants never use the front door, she said sharply. You'll sleep in the attic with the other maids. Your duties start at 5 in the morning and end when all work is finished. Is that clear? Yes, ma'am, Lily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The inside of the house was even more impressive than the outside. Lily caught glimpses of fine furniture, paintings in golden frames, and carpets so thick they looked like they'd never been walked on. But she wasn't led through those rooms. Instead, she was taken through narrow hallways meant for servants, up a steep back staircase that made her leg ache with every step. The attic was a long, narrow room with 6 small beds lined up against the walls. It was hot and stuffy with only 2 small windows at either end. 3 other girls were already there, all looking tired and worn despite being young. This is your bed, Mrs. Henderson said, pointing to the one nearest the door. Betty here will explain your duties. Don't disappoint me. After Mrs. Henderson left, the other girls barely looked at Lily. Betty, a girl about 17 with dark circles under her eyes, spoke without much warmth. You'll be doing the floors mostly. Scrubbing, sweeping, polishing. Mrs. Henderson is very particular about her floors. Lily nodded, setting her small bag on the thin mattress. Thank you for telling me. Don't thank me yet, Betty said. You'll hate it here soon enough. We all do. The next morning came too early. Lily was shaken awake while it was still dark outside. Her body ached from the unfamiliar bed and the long journey, but there was no time for rest. She was given a bucket of water, a brush, and a bar of harsh soap. Her job was to scrub the floors of the main hallway, the dining room, and the parlor. On her hands and knees, she worked as quickly as her weak leg would allow, but it was never fast enough. Faster, girl. Mrs. Henderson would snap whenever she passed by. I've seen snails move quicker than you. The other servants weren't much kinder. They saw Lily's limp and decided she was a burden before giving her a chance. When she struggled to carry heavy buckets of water, they whispered that she was lazy. When she needed to rest her leg, they called her weak. Lily tried her best. She truly did. She worked through the pain in her leg until tears streamed down her face. She scrubbed floors until her hands bled and her knees were bruised. She hauled water, washed windows, beat carpets, and polished silver until her entire body felt like it was on fire. But it was never enough. Mr. Henderson, the master of the house, barely noticed she existed. He was a large man who spent most of his time in his study or at his office in town. The Henderson children, 2 boys and a girl, looked at Lily like she was part of the furniture. They would drop things deliberately for her to clean up, laughing as she struggled to bend down with her bad leg. Winter came, and the attic became bitterly cold. Lily's thin blanket did little to keep her warm. She would lie awake at night shivering, thinking about her family. She wondered if they missed her. She wondered if her little sister still asked about her. She wondered if her mother looked at the matching locket and thought of her daughter. 6 months passed in this way. 6 months of backbreaking work, cold nights, and constant reminders that she wasn't good enough. Lily grew thinner, her face more hollow. The spark that had once been in her eyes began to dim. One evening, Lily was polishing the floor outside Mrs. Henderson's sitting room when she heard voices. She knew she shouldn't listen, but something made her pause. "The girl is too slow," Mrs. Henderson was saying to her husband. "She can barely keep up with the work. That leg of hers makes her worthless for anything demanding." "Then why did we pay good money for her contract?" Mr. Henderson asked, sounding annoyed. "I thought she'd be adequate for simple tasks, but I was wrong. I've been thinking, though. My brother runs that logging operation up in the mountains. They need someone to cook and clean for the workers. It's rough work, but it's not like she's delicate." Lily's blood ran cold. They were going to send her away again. Even further from home this time, to some place in the mountains she'd never heard of. Fine, Mr. Henderson said dismissively. "Do whatever you want. Just make sure we get something for her contract. I won't take a complete loss." Lily's hands shook so badly she dropped the polishing cloth. She picked it up quickly and hurried away before they could hear her crying. That night she lay in her narrow bed staring at the ceiling. She thought about running away, but where would she go? She had no money, no family nearby, and no skills that anyone seemed to value. She was trapped, being passed from place to place like an unwanted object. Betty noticed her tears. For the first time, her voice held a hint of sympathy. "They're sending you away, aren't they?" Lily nodded, unable to speak. "I heard them talking about it yesterday," Betty said quietly. "The logging camp is rough. Real rough. But maybe it won't be as bad as here. At least Mrs. Henderson won't be there." It was small comfort, but it was something. 2 weeks later, Lily found herself in a wagon again, being transported to yet another unknown place. Mr. Henderson had arranged everything. Her contract had been sold to the logging company. She was now owned by strangers she'd never met, expected to work in conditions she couldn't imagine. The journey took 3 days, climbing higher and higher into the mountains. The air grew colder and thinner. The trees became denser. The towns became smaller and eventually disappeared altogether. The driver, a rough man who barely spoke, finally stopped the wagon at the edge of a clearing. "This is it," he said. "The camp is just beyond those trees. Good luck, girl. You'll need it." Lily climbed down from the wagon, her legs stiff from the long journey. She could hear the sound of axes biting into wood, the crash of falling trees, and the rough laughter of men. As she walked into the camp carrying her small bag, dozens of men stopped to stare at her. Their faces were hard and weathered, their clothes rough and dirty. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with something that made her skin crawl. A large man with a thick beard approached her. "You the girl they sent to cook and clean?" "Yes, sir," Lily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. He looked her up and down, then spat on the ground. "You look half-starved and that leg's going to be a problem. But I guess you'll have to do. I'm the foreman here. You'll cook 3 meals a day for 40 men, wash their clothes, and keep the cookhouse clean. Your shelter's over there." He pointed to a lean-to structure that looked like it might blow over in a strong wind. It had 3 walls, a roof made of rough planks, and no door. A thin curtain provided the only privacy. Lily felt her last bit of hope crumble. She had gone from her family's farm to a mansion attic to this, each place worse than the last. Each place another reminder that the world saw her as worthless, as someone to be used and discarded. As the foreman walked away barking orders at his men, Lily stood in the middle of the clearing, clutching her bag, feeling more alone than she ever had in her life. She had been called useless by her father. inadequate by Mrs. Henderson, and now she was nothing more than a servant to rough men in a mountain camp so remote that she wondered if anyone would even notice if she disappeared completely. That night, lying on a pile of straw in her lean-to shelter, listening to the sounds of the forest and the distant voices of the logging crew, Lily touched the locket around her neck. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "You are not useless. You are loved." But in that moment, cold and alone and terrified of what tomorrow would bring, those words felt like lies told to comfort a child who no longer existed. The first morning at the logging camp, Lily woke up to the sound of men shouting and axes chopping. Her body was stiff from sleeping on the hard ground, and her breath came out in white clouds in the cold mountain air. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back down on her. She had to cook breakfast for 40 men. The cookhouse was a rough wooden building with a large iron stove, several heavy pots, and not much else. Someone had left basic supplies: flour, dried beans, salt pork, and coffee. Lily had helped her mother cook before, but never for so many people at once. She worked as fast as she could, building a fire in the stove, mixing batter for biscuits, frying salt pork, and making pot after pot of strong coffee. Her leg throbbed with pain, but she couldn't stop. The men would be hungry, and she'd already learned what happened when she disappointed people. The loggers filed in as the sun rose, loud and demanding. They grabbed food without thanking her, complained when something wasn't to their liking, and left the cookhouse a mess. Lily cleaned up after them, then immediately started preparing for the midday meal. This became her life. Wake up before dawn, cook breakfast, clean, prepare lunch, serve lunch, clean again, prepare dinner, serve dinner, clean everything, and then collapse in her lean-to shelter when it was finally dark. Her hands became rough and burned from the hot stove. Her back ached from hauling water from the creek. Her leg hurt so badly some days that she could barely walk. Most of the men ignored her unless they wanted something. A few made comments that made her uncomfortable, though the foreman had made it clear that anyone who touched her would be thrown out of camp. It wasn't kindness, Lily realized. She was just another tool they needed to keep the camp running. But there was one man who was different. She first noticed him on her third day. He stood apart from the others, eating his meals quickly and quietly before returning to work. He was tall and lean, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so serious. While the other men were loud and rough, he moved with a quiet certainty that caught her attention. His name was Jack, she learned from hearing the other men talk. He kept to himself, living in a small cabin at the far edge of the camp. The other loggers said he was the best woodworker in the mountains, that he could make furniture so fine that rich people in the cities paid good money for it. "Strange fellow," one logger said during dinner. "Been up here 5 years, barely says 10 words a day. Does his logging work, then spends his evenings in that cabin making chairs and tables like some kind of artist?" Lily was curious about this quiet man, but she had no time to wonder about him. Her days were too full of work and exhaustion. Then one evening something changed. It had been a particularly hard day. The stove had been acting up, making cooking take twice as long. She'd spilled a pot of beans and had to start over. Her leg was hurting so badly that she was limping worse than usual. By the time dinner was finished and cleaned up, she was fighting back tears. She stepped outside the cookhouse to get some air before going to her lean-to. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of orange and purple. For a moment, despite everything, the beauty of it took her breath away. "It's something, isn't it?" a quiet voice said. Lily jumped, startled. Jack was standing a few feet away, so quiet she hadn't heard him approach. This was the first time he'd ever spoken to her. "Yes, sir," she replied, not sure what else to say. "You don't have to call me sir," he said. "Jack is fine." He paused, then added, "You work hard. I see you limping by the end of the day." Lily felt her face flush with embarrassment. "I manage fine." "I didn't say you didn't," Jack said. There was no judgment in his voice, just a simple statement of fact. "I was just observing." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Your shelter isn't very warm. Winter's coming soon and it gets brutal up here. I have some extra blankets. I'll leave them by the cookhouse door tomorrow." Before Lily could respond, he walked away toward his cabin, his footsteps quiet on the forest floor. True to his word, the next morning, there were 2 thick wool blankets folded neatly by the cookhouse door. Lily looked toward Jack's cabin. wondering about this strange, quiet man who noticed things others didn't. Over the following weeks, Lily began to notice Jack more. He never made a fuss, never drew attention to himself, but small kindnesses kept appearing. Firewood would be stacked near the cookhouse stove when she was running low. Once, when she was struggling to carry a heavy pot of water, he simply appeared, took it from her hands without a word, carried it where she needed it, and walked away. He never lingered, never asked for thanks, never made her uncomfortable like some of the other men did. He just quietly helped and then disappeared back to his work or his cabin. One evening, Lily decided to thank him properly. She saved back some of the better portions from dinner and walked to his cabin at the edge of the camp. It was the first time she'd been there. The cabin was small but well built, with smoke coming from the chimney and warm light glowing from the windows. She knocked hesitantly on the door. Jack opened it, looking surprised to see her. "Is something wrong?" "No, sir, I mean Jack," Lily said quickly. "I just wanted to thank you for your kindness. I brought you some extra dinner." For the first time since she'd met him, Jack smiled. It was a small smile, almost shy, but it transformed his serious face. "You didn't have to do that, but thank you. Would you like to come in for a moment?" "It's cold out there." Lily hesitated, but something about Jack made her feel safe. She stepped inside. The cabin was simple but comfortable. What caught her eye immediately were the pieces of furniture scattered around. A beautiful chair with carved armrests, a small table with intricate designs, a chest with such smooth surfaces it seemed to glow in the lamplight. "Did you make all of these?" Lily asked, amazed. "I did," Jack said, setting the food she'd brought on his table. "Woodworking helps me think, keeps my hands busy and my mind quiet." "They're beautiful," Lily said honestly. "I've never seen anything like them." Jack looked at her for a long moment as if trying to decide something. "Do you want to see what I'm working on now?" He led her to a corner of the cabin where a partially completed rocking chair sat. Even unfinished, Lily could see the skill in every curve and joint. "It's for a family in the valley town," Jack explained. "They're expecting a baby." The father wanted something special for his wife. There was something wistful in his voice that made Lily curious, but she didn't pry. They talked for a few more minutes about simple things, the weather, the camp, the mountains. Then Lily excused herself, knowing she needed to get back before anyone noticed she was gone. As she walked back to her lean-to, she realized something. For the first time since leaving home, she had felt like a person rather than a servant. Jack had spoken to her like she mattered, like her thoughts were worth hearing. After that evening, a quiet friendship began to form. Jack would sometimes eat his breakfast a bit slower, and they'd exchange a few words. Nothing deep, nothing personal, just small conversations that made the hard days a bit easier. Lily learned that Jack had come to the mountains years ago after losing people he loved. He didn't give details and she didn't ask. She understood that some pain was too deep for words. Jack learned that Lily had been sent away by her family, sold like property because they saw her as useless. He listened without interrupting, his eyes showing an understanding that came from his own suffering. "People who call you useless are usually the ones who can't see value in anything but themselves," Jack said quietly one morning. "You're not useless. You're just surrounded by people too blind to see what you're worth." Those words stayed with Lily long after he'd gone back to work. They were like seeds planted in frozen ground, waiting for the right moment to grow. Winter was approaching fast. The air grew colder, the days shorter. The foreman announced that the logging camp would shut down for the season in 2 weeks. Most of the men would head to the valley towns to find winter work or stay with family. Lily felt panic rising in her chest. Where would she go? She had no money, no family nearby, and no one who cared if she lived or died. The cold mountain winter would kill her if she tried to stay in her lean-to shelter. She was trapped again, facing an impossible situation with no good choices, but she didn't know that Jack had been thinking about this too. And he was about to make an offer that would change everything. The announcement came on a cold October morning. The foreman gathered all the workers after breakfast and told them the camp would close in 1 week. The men cheered, already planning where they'd spend the winter months. Some talked about heading to the valley towns to work in the mills. Others mentioned family they'd visit. Lily stood in the cookhouse doorway watching them celebrate, feeling nothing but dread. She had nowhere to go. That evening she tried to talk to the foreman. "Sir, about when the camp closes. What happens to me?" He looked at her like she was a problem he'd forgotten about. "Not my concern. Your contract was for the logging season. Once we close up, you're on your own. But where am I supposed to go? Lily asked, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. The foreman shrugged. Town's about 15 miles down the mountain. Maybe you can find work there. Maybe not. Either way, you can't stay here. Lily felt her stomach drop. 15 miles down a mountain trail with winter coming and a bad leg. Even if she made it to town, who would hire her? She had no references, no skills beyond cooking and cleaning, and everyone could see her limp within seconds of meeting her. She spent the next 2 days in a fog of worry. At night, she barely slept, her mind racing through impossible scenarios. She thought about writing to her mother, but what good would that do? Her family had no money to send her. They'd made it clear she was on her own. On the third evening after the announcement, Jack appeared at the cookhouse after dinner. Most of the men had already left, heading to their bunks or to play cards in one of the cabins. "Can we talk?" Jack asked quietly. Lily nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. They stepped outside where they could speak privately. The evening air was crisp and cold, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke. Jack seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. He was normally so calm and steady. He cleared his throat twice before speaking. "I heard what the foreman told you," he began, "about having nowhere to go when the camp closes." Lily felt tears prick her eyes but fought them back. "I'll figure something out." "I have a proposal," Jack said, his words coming out in a rush like he'd been rehearsing them. "My cabin has a small storage room on the side. It's not much, maybe 8 feet by 10 feet, but it has a window and I could put a small stove in there. You could stay there through the winter." Lily stared at him, not sure she'd heard correctly. "Stay with you?" "In your own room," Jack said quickly, "with a door that locks from the inside. I'm not suggesting anything improper. I can't stand the thought of you trying to make it down that mountain alone or freezing in some town with no help." "But why would you do that?" Lily asked, confused. "What would you want from me?" Jack looked her in the eye, his expression serious. "I'd want you to cook meals and maybe help with mending clothes. That's all. Nothing else. You'd have your own space, your privacy, and you'd be safe and warm through the winter. Come spring, if you want to leave, you're free to go. I won't stop you," Lily's mind raced. Living in a cabin with a man she barely knew sounded dangerous. Her mother had warned her about men and their intentions. But everything about Jack had been respectful and kind. He'd never once made her uncomfortable, never looked at her the way some of the other loggers did. "I don't have any money to pay you," Lily said quietly. "I don't want money," Jack replied. "I want to know that you'll survive the winter." "Is that so hard to believe?" Lily studied his face in the dim light. She saw no deception there, no hidden agenda, just genuine concern from a lonely man who understood what it felt like to be cast aside by the world. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked. Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. 5 years ago, I lost my wife and baby son to fever. I couldn't save them. I came to these mountains because I couldn't stand being in the world anymore. I built that cabin thinking I'd just live alone until I died." He paused, looking up at the darkening sky. "But watching you these past months, working so hard despite everything, being treated poorly and still getting up every morning, you remind me that there's still goodness in the world. Still people worth helping. I couldn't save my family, but maybe I can help you. Maybe that means something." Lily felt tears rolling down her cheeks. She understood grief. She understood loneliness. She understood what it felt like when the world decided you didn't matter. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you. I accept your offer." Jack let out a breath like he'd been holding it. "Good, that's good. I'll start fixing up that storage room tomorrow. Should have it ready before the camp closes." True to his word, Jack spent the next 4 days transforming the storage room. Lily would peek in when she had a moment between cooking duties. He built a proper bed frame, installed a small wood stove, added shelves to the walls, and even made a simple chair and small table. He hung thick curtains over the window and made sure the door had a sturdy lock. The other loggers noticed his work and started gossiping. Some made crude jokes about what Jack was really planning. Others thought he was foolish for taking on the burden of another person. Jack ignored all of it, focused on his work. On the last day of the camp's operation, the foreman paid out the workers. Men packed their belongings and headed down the mountain in groups, their voices fading into the distance. By evening, the camp was nearly empty. Just Jack, Lily, and 2 other men who were leaving first thing in the morning. Lily packed her few belongings, her small cloth bag looking even more pitiful than when she'd arrived. Everything she owned in the world still fit in one tiny bag. Jack came to help her carry her things to his cabin. It wasn't far, just a 10-minute walk through the trees, but her leg made even short distances difficult. The cabin looked warm and welcoming with smoke curling from the chimney. Jack opened the door and showed her inside. The main room had his bed in one corner, his woodworking tools and partially finished furniture in another, a table with 2 chairs and the wood stove that heated the space. Then he showed her to the side room. Lily gasped. It was perfect. Small, yes, but clean and warm. The bed had a thick mattress and wool blankets. The little stove was already lit, making the space cozy. There was a hook for her clothes, shelves for her few possessions, and the chair and table positioned near the window where she could look out at the mountains. The door locks from inside, Jack said, demonstrating. You're safe here. The main cabin door also locks, so you don't have to worry about anyone wandering in from outside. Lily set her bag down, overwhelmed. This was the nicest place she'd ever had to herself. Better than the cramped attic at the Hendersons. Better than the lean-to at the camp. Better even than the room she'd shared with her sisters back home. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Jack replied. Just rest tonight. We'll figure out the daily routine tomorrow. That night, Lily lay in her small bed, warm for the first time in months, and cried. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. Outside her window, snow began to fall, the first snow of winter. The flakes drifted down silently, covering the world in white. The camp behind them was empty now, abandoned until spring, but Lily wasn't alone. She was safe in a warm cabin with a man who had asked for nothing but the chance to help her survive. She touched the locket around her neck, thinking of her mother's words, "You are loved." Maybe, just maybe, those words were starting to feel true again. In the main room, Jack sat at his workbench, running his hands over a piece of wood he was shaping into something beautiful. For the first time in 5 years, his cabin didn't feel so empty. There was another heartbeat sharing his space, another soul surviving the cold. He didn't know what the winter would bring. He didn't know if this arrangement would work. But he knew one thing for certain. He'd made the right choice in offering to help. Some people were worth saving even if the world had given up on them, and Lily, despite what her father and Mrs. Henderson and the foreman had said, despite all the people who had called her useless and worthless, was absolutely worth saving. The first morning in the cabin, Lily woke up confused about where she was. Then she remembered. She was in Jack's cabin in her own little room, safe from the cold. Through her window she could see snow covering everything like a thick white blanket. She got up and dressed quietly, not wanting to wake Jack. But when she opened her door, she found he was already awake, building up the fire in the main stove. "Morning," he said simply. "Coffee's almost ready." They fell into an awkward routine those first few days. Neither of them was used to sharing space with another person. They spoke in careful, polite sentences. "Pass the salt, please." "Thank you for breakfast." "I'll be in the workshop if you need anything." Lily cooked simple meals, cleaned the cabin, and mended Jack's worn clothes. Jack worked on his furniture pieces, chopped firewood, and made sure they had enough supplies to last through the winter. They moved around each other like dancers learning new steps, careful not to get too close. But slowly, as the days passed, the awkwardness began to fade. It started with small conversations over breakfast. Jack would mention something about the wood he was working with, and Lily would ask questions. She was genuinely curious about his craft, and Jack seemed pleased to explain. "This piece here is cherry wood," he said one morning, showing her a plank with beautiful reddish tones. "It's one of my favorites to work with. Strong but smooth, and it ages beautifully." "How did you learn to do this?" Lily asked. Jack's face softened with memory. "My father was a carpenter. He taught me when I was young. Said every man should know how to create something with his hands." He paused. "After I lost my wife and son, woodworking was the only thing that kept me sane. When I'm shaping wood, I can forget everything else." It was the most personal thing Jack had shared with her. Lily understood. "Cooking does that for me sometimes," she said quietly. "When I'm measuring flour or stirring soup, I don't have to think about anything else." Their eyes met across the table, a moment of understanding passing between them. As winter deepened, they spent more time together simply because there was nowhere else to go. The snow piled up outside, sometimes reaching halfway up the windows. Jack would go out to check his traps or gather more firewood, but mostly they were confined to the cabin. One evening after dinner, Jack asked, "Would you like to see how I do this?" He was working on a chair, carefully carving a design into the backrest. Lily moved closer to watch. His hands moved with such certainty, such skill, that it was almost like watching magic. "The trick is to work with the wood, not against it," Jack explained. "Every piece has its own grain, its own personality. You have to respect that. Could you teach me?" Lily asked, surprising herself with the question. Jack looked at her thoughtfully. "You want to learn woodworking?" "I want to learn to make something beautiful," Lily said. "All my life I've just been cleaning and cooking and serving. I'd like to create something that lasts." Jack smiled, that rare, small smile that made him look younger. "All right, we'll start with something simple." The next day, Jack set up a small workspace for Lily. He gave her a piece of soft pine wood and showed her how to hold the tools safely. At first, Lily was terrified she'd hurt herself or ruin the wood. Her hands shook as she tried to follow Jack's instructions. "Don't be afraid of it," Jack said gently. "The wood wants to be shaped. Just go slowly." Lily made her first cut. It was crooked and rough, nothing like Jack's smooth, precise work. She felt tears of frustration building. "That's actually pretty good for a first try," Jack said. "Look, you followed the grain. That's the most important thing. The smoothness comes with practice." Over the following weeks, Jack taught Lily the basics of woodworking. She learned how to sand, how to measure, how to cut straight lines. Her weak leg actually didn't matter much for this work. She could sit on a stool and use her hands, and that was enough. She made mistakes constantly. She cut too deep, sanded unevenly, and broke more than one piece. But Jack never got frustrated with her. He'd just show her how to fix it or start over, his patience seeming endless. "You're a good teacher," Lily said one afternoon after successfully completing a small box with a fitted lid. "You're a good student," Jack replied. "You listen, and you're not afraid to try again after failing. That's all that matters." As Lily's skills grew, so did their friendship. They talked more freely now. Jack told her about his childhood, about his parents who had passed away years ago, about his wife Anna and their baby boy who'd only lived 3 days. "I blamed myself," Jack admitted one snowy evening. "Thought if I'd been a better husband, a better provider, maybe they'd have survived. It took me a long time to understand that some things just happen. That grief isn't the same as guilt." Lily shared her own story too, about her father's harshness, her mother's helplessness, the pain of being sold away like she was nothing. "Do you miss them?" Jack asked. "My mother and my siblings, yes," Lily said. "My father, no." "Is that terrible?" "It's honest," Jack said. "You don't owe love to people who treated you cruelly, even if they're family." These conversations, shared in the warm glow of the fire while snow fell outside, healed something in both of them. They were two wounded souls finding comfort in each other's company. Jack also noticed things about Lily that no one else ever had. He saw how she favored her good leg, and he built her a special stool that was the perfect height to take pressure off her hip. He noticed she loved looking at the mountains, so he positioned her chair in the main room to face the best window. Lily noticed things about Jack too. She saw how he sometimes stared at nothing, lost in memories of his lost family. On those days, she'd quietly make his favorite meal or leave a cup of hot coffee by his workbench. Small kindnesses that said, "I see your pain and you're not alone." Winter's deepest cold came in January. For 3 weeks, they were completely snowed in, unable to even open the cabin door. But they didn't feel trapped. They had food, warmth, and each other's company. Lily worked on a small table, her first real project. Jack worked on an elaborate dresser with carved drawer fronts. They worked side by side, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes talking about anything and everything. "You know what's strange?" Lily said one day. "I'm happier here, snowed into a mountain cabin, than I've ever been in my life." Jack looked up from his work, considering her words. "It's not strange. Sometimes the smallest, quietest lives are the happiest ones. No one here is telling you you're worthless. No one's treating you like property. You're treating me like a person," Lily said softly, "like someone who matters." "You do matter," Jack said firmly. "Don't ever forget that." By the time February came, Lily had completed her table. It wasn't perfect. The legs were slightly uneven, and the surface had a few rough spots. but it was hers. Something she'd made with her own hands, something that would last. Jack examined it carefully, then nodded with approval. "This is good work, Lily, really good. You have a natural feel for it." Lily beamed with pride. For the first time in her life, someone was praising her for creating something, rather than just serving someone. But more than that, she realized something important. Jack had given her more than shelter and woodworking lessons. He'd given her back her sense of worth. He'd shown her that her value wasn't determined by her father's cruelty, or Mrs. Henderson's disdain, or the foreman's indifference. She was valuable because she was a person, because she could learn and grow and create, because she mattered simply by existing. As winter began to loosen its grip and the snow started to melt, both Lily and Jack knew that their time in the cabin had changed them. They'd arrived as two broken people, and they were becoming whole again. Jack no longer spent his evenings staring into the fire, lost in grief. He laughed more, talked more, seemed lighter somehow. Lily no longer flinched when someone spoke to her or hunched her shoulders like she was expecting a blow. She stood straighter, spoke with more confidence, and believed in her own abilities. They'd saved each other, really. Jack had given Lily shelter and skills. Lily had given Jack a reason to stop hiding from the world. One evening in early March, as they sat by the fire after dinner, Jack said quietly, "Spring's coming soon. The logging camp will open again in a few weeks." Lily's heart sank. She'd known this moment would come, but she'd tried not to think about it. "Will you go back to the camp?" Jack shook his head. "No, I've been thinking about something different. Something I want to talk to you about." Lily waited, her heart beating faster. "What if we didn't go back?" Jack said. "What if we started something new?" Lily stared at Jack, not sure she'd heard him correctly. "Something new? What do you mean?" Jack stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the melting snow. "I've been thinking about this all winter. I make furniture that people want to buy. Good furniture. I've been selling pieces here and there, but I've been holding myself back. Hiding up here in the mountains instead of really building something." He turned to face her. "There's a valley about 10 miles from here. Small community, growing slowly. Good people. I went there once 2 years ago to deliver a custom piece. The town has potential. They need a proper furniture maker." Lily felt hope and fear warring in her chest. "You want to move there?" "I want us to move there," Jack said. "Together. As business partners." "Business partners?" Lily repeated, confused. Jack came back and sat down across from her. "Listen to me. You've learned fast. You have a good eye for detail, and your finishing work is getting really strong. What you lack in experience, you make up for in natural talent. I could use a partner, someone to help with the detailed work, handle the business side of things, talk to customers." "But I don't know enough," Lily protested. "I've only been learning for a few months." "And you've already made a table good enough to sell," Jack countered. "With more practice and time, you'll be even better. Besides, this isn't just about the woodworking. It's about building a life, a real life, not just surviving." Lily's mind raced. "What exactly are you proposing?" Jack leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I have money saved from 5 years of furniture sales. Enough to buy a piece of land in the valley. We build a proper workshop big enough for both of us to work. We build a house, a real house with separate living quarters so you have your privacy and independence." "A house," Lily whispered, barely able to imagine it. "Yes. And we run the business together. Equal partners. We both work, we both contribute, and we split everything 50-50. You're not my employee or my charity case. You're my partner." Lily felt tears welling up. "Why would you do this? Why would you give me half of everything when you're the one with the skills and the money?" Jack's voice was gentle but firm. "Because you deserve a chance. Because I've watched you work hard and learn fast and never complain even when things are difficult. Because you make this cabin feel less empty." He paused. "And because I believe we could build something good together. Something that lasts." "But what will people say?" Lily asked. "A young woman and a man living on the same property working together?" "Let them talk," Jack said. "We'll know the truth. We'll have separate living spaces. Separate lives if that's what you want. But we'll also have a business we built together. That's what matters." Lily stood up and walked to her little room. She looked around at the space Jack had created for her, the bed he'd built, the shelves he'd made. She thought about the winter they'd spent together, learning and growing and healing. She thought about the alternative. going back to the logging camp or trying to find work in some town where no one knew her, and everyone would see her as just another poor girl with a bad leg. She touched the locket around her neck. What would her mother tell her to do? She thought she knew. Her mother would tell her to grab this chance with both hands. Lily walked back to the main room. I have one condition. Jack looked surprised. What's that? I want to send money back to my mother. Not to my father. Just my mother and my younger siblings. They didn't choose to send me away. I want them to know I'm all right and I want to help them. Jack smiled. That's not a condition, that's just being a good person. Of course you can send money to your family. It'll be your money to do with as you wish. Lily took a deep breath. Then yes, I accept. We're partners. Jack stood and extended his hand. Lily shook it, feeling the calloused warmth of his palm against hers. It was a handshake that sealed not just a business deal, but a promise of a future neither of them had dared to hope for. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning. Jack made several trips down to the valley, meeting with people about land and supplies. Lily worked on finishing several pieces they could sell to raise more money. In early April, Jack came back from the valley with news. I found the perfect spot. 3 acres of flat land near the main road through town, close enough to get customers, far enough to have peace and quiet. And I bought it. He showed Lily a rough map he'd drawn. The workshop will be here, facing the road so people can see it. The house will be here, set back for privacy. We'll have room for a garden, maybe some chickens. Lily studied the map, her heart pounding. This was really happening. They were building a new life. By late April, the mountain trails were clear enough to transport goods. Jack hired 2 men with a large wagon to help move his tools and materials down to the valley. Lily packed her small bag, which now included a nice dress Jack had bought her for meeting customers, and several tools he'd gifted her. The journey down the mountain took a full day. Lily got her first view of the valley as the sun was setting. It was beautiful, with green meadows, a clear stream running through it, and the small town clustered around a main street with maybe 20 buildings. Their land was perfect. Jack's description hadn't done it justice. The 3 acres felt spacious and full of possibility. That first night, they slept in a tent while Jack started planning the construction. We'll build the workshop first, he said. That way we can start working and earning money while we build the house. They worked harder than Lily had ever worked before, but this time it was different. This time she was working for herself, for her own future. Every board they placed, every nail they hammered, was building something that belonged to both of them. Jack hired local men to help with the heavy construction, but Lily worked alongside them, doing what she could despite her leg. The locals watched with curiosity and some skepticism, a young woman building a business with a quiet mountain man. It was unusual, to say the least. By June, the workshop was finished. It was spacious and well lit, with room for 2 full workbenches, storage for wood and tools, and a display area for finished pieces. They painted a sign, Mountain Valley Furniture, custom woodwork by Jack and Lily. Seeing her name on that sign made Lily cry. Her name on a business, declaring to the world that she was a craftsperson, a maker of beautiful things, not just a servant or a burden. Their first real customer was a woman named Helen, who ran the general store in town. She'd heard about the new furniture makers and came to see their work. I need a display cabinet, Helen said, something sturdy but nice looking. Jack and Lily showed her some sketches and samples of their work. Helen examined everything carefully, then nodded. You do good work. How much? When Jack quoted a fair price, Helen agreed immediately. I'll tell my friends about you. We need quality furniture makers in this valley. True to her word, Helen spread the word. Within a month, they had 3 more orders. A dining table for a family, a rocking chair for a new mother, a desk for the town's doctor. Lily discovered she loved talking to customers, understanding what they needed, and helping design pieces that would fit their lives. Jack was happy to let her handle that side of the business while he focused on the more complex construction work. By August, they had enough money to start building the house. Jack designed it carefully, exactly as he'd promised. 2 separate living areas, each with a bedroom, sitting room, and privacy. But they shared a kitchen and a common area for meals and evening conversation. The house went up quickly with the help of local builders. By September, they moved in. Lily had her own space, her own bedroom with a real door that locked, her own sitting room where she could read or work on small projects, but what surprised her was how often she chose to be in the common areas with Jack. They'd gotten so used to each other's company during the winter that separating now felt strange. They fell into a comfortable rhythm, work together in the shop during the day, eat dinner together in the evening, sometimes talk late into the night about their dreams and plans, sometimes sit in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The business grew steadily. By October, they had enough orders that Lily was working full days in the shop, her skills having improved dramatically. She specialized in the detailed finishing work, the carving and polishing that made good furniture into beautiful furniture. One evening, as they were reviewing their accounts, Lily said, "We made enough this month for me to send money home." Jack smiled. "Then do it. I'm sure your mother will be happy to hear from you." Lily wrote a careful letter to her mother, including enough money to make a real difference. She told her mother about the business, about the house, about how she'd learned to make furniture. She didn't mention her father at all. 3 weeks later, a letter came back. Her mother's handwriting was shaky with emotion. "My dearest Lily, I cannot tell you what joy your letter brought me. Your father doesn't know I'm writing this. He still doesn't speak your name. But your sisters ask about you constantly, and I've told them you're building a wonderful life. The money you sent has helped us so much. But more than that, knowing you're safe and happy means everything. You were never useless, my darling girl. You were always special. I'm so proud of you. Your loving mother." Lily read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she showed it to Jack. The first winter in their new home brought challenges neither Jack nor Lily had expected. The workshop was colder than anticipated, and they had to install an additional stove. Several customers delayed picking up their orders because of snow. Money got tighter than they'd planned, but they worked through it together, learning to budget carefully and plan ahead. More importantly, they learned to trust each other completely when it came to the business. By the following spring, word about their furniture had spread beyond the valley. A merchant from a larger town 2 days away came to visit their workshop. His name was Mr. Peterson, and he owned a fine furniture store. "I've heard you make quality pieces," Mr. Peterson said, walking slowly around their workshop, examining everything with a critical eye. Jack showed him their completed pieces. A beautiful dining set, several chairs with intricate carved backs, a bookshelf that Lily had designed herself. Mr. Peterson paused at the bookshelf, running his hand over the smooth surface. "Who did the detail work on this?" "I did," Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady. This was the first time a real merchant had looked at her work. Mr. Peterson studied her for a moment, then looked back at the bookshelf. "This is exceptional. The precision of the joints, the smoothness of the finish. This is work I could sell in my store for a good price." Lily felt her heart skip. "Really?" "Really," Mr. Peterson confirmed. He turned to Jack. "I'd like to place an order. 3 bookcases like this one, 2 dining tables, and 6 chairs. Can you handle that?" Jack and Lily exchanged glances. It was their biggest order yet. "How soon would you need them?" Jack asked. 3 months, Mr. Peterson said. "I'll pay half now, half on delivery. And if they sell well, I'll order more." After Mr. Peterson left with their agreement, Lily let out a squeal of excitement. Did that really just happen? Jack laughed, a sound that had become more common over the past year. "It really did. And he specifically praised your work. You're making a name for yourself, Lily." They threw themselves into the order, working long days to meet the deadline. Lily's skills had grown so much that Jack trusted her with complete pieces now, not just finishing work. She built one of the bookcases entirely by herself, and it was as good as anything Jack made. The townspeople had slowly warmed to them over the past year. At first, there had been gossip. A young woman and a man, unmarried, living on the same property. Scandalous. But as people got to know them, saw how hard they worked, and understood the respect they showed each other, the gossip faded. Helen from the general store became a good friend to Lily. She'd stop by the workshop sometimes just to chat, bringing news from town and occasionally fresh bread. "You know what people are saying now?" Helen said one afternoon, smiling. "They're saying you two are the best thing that's happened to this valley. The furniture you make brings people from other towns. That means more business for everyone." Lily felt pride swell in her chest. They weren't just surviving. They were contributing to the whole community. They delivered Mr. Peterson's order exactly on time. When he saw the finished pieces, he smiled broadly. "Even better than I hoped." I'll take everything, and I want to place another order right now." True to his word, Mr. Peterson became a regular customer, ordering several pieces every few months. Other merchants heard about their work and started coming too. By the end of their second year, they needed to expand. They hired a young man from town named Ben to help with the heavy work and basic construction. This freed up Jack and Lily to focus on the skilled craftsmanship that made their pieces special. Lily took on more responsibilities. She kept all the business records, tracking orders, expenses, and profits. She corresponded with customers, sometimes traveling to nearby towns to discuss custom pieces. She designed new furniture styles that combined Jack's traditional skills with her own creative touches. One day, a wealthy family from the city came to commission an entire dining room set. The mother insisted on speaking with the woman who does the detail work. "I saw one of your bookcases at Mr. Peterson's store," the woman said to Lily. "The craftsmanship was extraordinary. I want that same quality for my dining room." Lily designed a complete set including a table, 12 chairs, a sideboard, and a china cabinet. The family approved her designs and agreed to her price without hesitation. That night, Lily and Jack celebrated with a special dinner. "Do you realize what just happened?" Jack said. "A wealthy family came specifically requesting your work. They didn't care that you're a woman, or that you're young, or that you have a limp. They only cared that you're skilled." Lily felt tears of joy. "I never thought this was possible. Back when my father called me useless, when Mrs. Henderson said I was too slow, when the foreman treated me like I was nothing. I never imagined I could be here doing this." "They were wrong about you," Jack said firmly. "They were always wrong. You just needed someone to give you a chance to prove it." Lily sent more money home to her mother, along with a long letter about the business. Her mother's responses always filled Lily with warmth. Her younger sisters were doing well. Her mother had even used some of the money to buy a milk cow, which helped feed the family. Her father still refused to acknowledge Lily's existence, but Lily found she didn't care anymore. She'd proven her worth to herself, and that was what mattered. As their third year began, something unexpected happened. The town council approached Jack and Lily with a proposal. They wanted a custom piece for the new town hall, a large table where the council could meet. "We want the best," the mayor said, "and everyone agrees that's you two." Creating the council table became a labor of love. Jack and Lily worked on it together, combining their skills to create something truly special. The table was large enough for 20 people, made from beautiful oak with carved details representing the valley's history. When they delivered it, the entire town came to the dedication ceremony. The mayor gave a speech praising Jack and Lily's contribution to the community. "These two came to our valley less than 3 years ago," the mayor said, "and they've shown us what dedication and skill can accomplish. They've put our town on the map. People come from miles around to buy Mountain Valley furniture." Standing there, listening to the applause, Lily felt something she'd never felt before. She felt valued. She felt respected. She felt like she belonged. That evening, Jack and Lily sat on the porch of their house watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. "I've been thinking," Jack said quietly. "We've built something really good here. The business is strong. We work well together. We've made a good life." "We have," Lily agreed, wondering where he was going with this. Jack turned to look at her. "People in town assume we're married. They have for a while now. It doesn't bother me because I know the truth. But I've been wondering, would you ever want it to be true?" Lily's heart started racing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that somewhere along the way you became more than my business partner," Jack said. "You became my best friend. The person I want to talk to at the end of every day. The person who makes this house feel like a home." He paused. "I'm not good with words like this, but I'm asking if you'd consider marrying me. Not because you need to, not because of what people think, but because you want to." Lily felt tears streaming down her face. She thought about everything they'd been through together. The hard winter in the cabin, building the business from nothing, learning to trust each other. Creating a life neither of them had dared to dream of. "I need you to understand something," Lily said. "If I say yes, it's not because you rescued me or gave me opportunities. It's not because I'm grateful, though I am. It's because somewhere along the way I fell in love with you, with your kindness and your patience and your steady strength, with the way you see the best in people, with the way you saw worth in me when everyone else saw only weakness." Jack reached for her hand. "Is that a yes?" Lily smiled through her tears. That's a yes. I would be honored to marry you. They sat together on that porch holding hands, watching the stars come out one by one. Two people who had been broken by life, who had found each other in the mountains, who had built something beautiful together. The business they'd created was thriving. But more than that, they'd created a partnership based on mutual respect, trust, and love. They'd proven that people could build a life together as equals. That worth wasn't determined by what others said, but by what you did with the chances you were given. Lily touched the locket around her neck, the one her mother had given her so long ago. You are not useless, her mother had written. You are loved. Those words had kept her going through the darkest times. And now, sitting beside the man who would become her husband, looking at the workshop where she practiced her craft, living in a house she'd helped build, Lily knew those words were absolutely true. She wasn't useless. She never had been. She just needed the chance to prove it. And with Jack beside her, she'd proven it beyond any doubt. The news of Jack and Lily's engagement spread through the valley like wildfire. Most people were delighted. They'd watched the couple work together for nearly 3 years, seen their respect and care for each other, and many had been quietly hoping this would happen. Helen from the general store was the most excited. Finally, she exclaimed when Lily told her, everyone's been waiting for you two to figure out what we all knew already. What's that? Lily asked, laughing. That you're perfect for each other, Helen said. You balance him out, make him less serious, and he makes you stronger, more confident. Plus, you build beautiful furniture together. What more could anyone ask for? The wedding was planned for late summer. Lily and Jack wanted something simple but meaningful. They'd invite the townspeople who had become their friends, have the ceremony in the valley with the mountains as their backdrop, and celebrate with food and music. Lily wrote to her mother with the news. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived that made her cry. Her mother was coming to the wedding. She was bringing Lily's younger sisters with her. Her father had forbidden it, but her mother had stood up to him for the first time in years. I missed watching you grow up these past years, her mother wrote. I will not miss seeing you get married to a good man who treats you with the respect you deserve. When the day came for her family to arrive, Lily was so nervous she could barely work. Jack noticed and sent her home early to prepare. The wagon pulled up just before dinner. Lily ran outside, her limp more pronounced because she was moving too fast. Her mother climbed down. Older and more tired-looking than Lily remembered, but her face lit up with joy when she saw her daughter. They embraced, both crying. Let me look at you, her mother said, holding Lily at arm's length. You're beautiful, healthy, happy. Oh, my darling girl, you're so happy. Lily's sisters, now 13 and 9, were shy at first. But Lily hugged them tight, and soon they were talking eagerly, asking 100 questions about everything. Jack came to greet them, respectful and kind. Lily's mother studied him carefully, then smiled. You're the man who gave my daughter a chance when the world gave up on her. She gave herself the chance, Jack said. I just provided the tools. Everything she's accomplished, she did through her own hard work and talent. Lily's mother wiped away tears. Thank you for seeing what her father couldn't. Thank you for treating her the way she deserves. That evening, Lily showed her family everything. The workshop where her mother marveled at the furniture they'd made. The house which her sisters declared was like a palace. And most importantly, she showed them the life she'd built. This is my workbench, Lily said, running her hand over the smooth surface. I built that bookcase there, and that chair, and I designed this table. Her younger sister touched the furniture with wonder. You made this? By yourself? Jack taught me, Lily said. But yes, I made them. I'm a furniture maker, a craftswoman. Her mother's voice was thick with emotion. Your father said you'd never amount to anything. He said your leg made you worthless. I wish he could see this, see what you've become. I don't need him to see it, Lily said gently. I know my worth now. That's enough. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. The sky was clear blue. The mountains stood majestic in the distance, and the valley was green and beautiful. Chairs were set up in the meadow near Jack and Lily's property. Helen and the other town women had decorated everything with wildflowers. Lily wore a simple but beautiful dress that she and Helen had made together. It was white with delicate embroidery around the collar. Her mother had brought the family's old veil, the same one she'd worn at her own wedding. As Lily walked down the makeshift aisle, her mother on one side and Jack waiting at the other end. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from a girl called useless, sold away by her father, to a woman walking toward her own future with confidence and joy. The local minister, a kind man who'd bought several chairs from them, performed the ceremony. When he asked if anyone objected to the marriage, there was only warm silence and smiling faces. Jack's vows were simple and sincere. "Lily, you came into my life when I'd given up on having anyone to share it with. You brought light back into my days. You showed me that it's possible to heal and build something new. I promise to be your partner in all things, to respect you always, and to spend my life making sure you know how valued you are." Lily's vows came straight from her heart. "Jack, you saw worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You gave me not just shelter but opportunity, not just kindness but partnership. You taught me that my value doesn't come from what others think of me, but from what I choose to build with my own hands and heart. I promise to be your equal partner, your best friend, and your wife who loves you more than words can say." When the minister pronounced them married, the gathered crowd cheered. It was a sound of pure joy and celebration. The reception that followed was simple but wonderful. Tables laden with food that the town women had prepared. Music from a local fiddler who played lively tunes. Dancing and laughing and stories shared under the summer sky. Lily danced with Jack, her bad leg barely slowing her down. She'd grown so strong over the past 3 years that it hardly bothered her anymore, or maybe she'd just learned to not let it define her. She danced with her sisters, making them giggle with silly steps. She danced with her mother, both of them crying happy tears. She even danced with Ben, their workshop assistant, and with the mayor, and with old Mr. Peterson, who'd come all the way from his town to celebrate. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Jack and Lily stood together, surrounded by friends and family, by the workshop they'd built, by the home they'd created. "Look at all this," Jack said quietly. 4 years ago, I was living alone in a mountain cabin, thinking my life was over. Now I have a wife, a thriving business, and a community of friends. You changed everything, Lily." "We changed everything," Lily corrected, "together." In the days after the wedding, Lily's mother and sister stayed for a visit. Lily taught her younger sister some basic woodworking skills, delighting in the girl's enthusiasm. Her mother spent hours talking with her, sharing news from home and marveling at everything Lily had accomplished. When it was time for them to leave, the goodbyes were tearful, but not sad. They promised to write more often, to visit when they could. Lily sent money with them, enough to make things easier at home. "Be happy, my darling," her mother said, holding Lily tight. "You've earned this happiness 100 times over." After they left, Jack and Lily returned to their normal routine. Work in the shop during the day, meals together. Evenings spent in comfortable companionship. But now they shared the master bedroom in the house, their partnership complete in every way. The business continued to grow. By their 5th year in the valley, they had 3 employees and were considered one of the finest furniture makers in the entire region. Wealthy families from the city would travel to commission custom pieces. Lily had become known for her detailed carving work. She developed a signature style that customers specifically requested. Some pieces were marked with her initials alongside Jack's, a testament to her skill and reputation. She also started teaching woodworking to other young women in the valley. 2 girls, both around 16, came to apprentice in the shop. Lily taught them with the same patience Jack had shown her, passing on not just skills but confidence and belief in their own abilities. "You're good at this," one of the girls said after Lily had explained a complex joint technique. "Teaching, I mean." "I had a good teacher," Lily said, smiling at Jack across the workshop. "He taught me that everyone has value and potential. They just need someone to believe in them and give them the tools to succeed." 6 years after arriving in the valley, Jack and Lily sat down one evening to review their business records. The numbers were impressive. They'd gone from 2 people working out of a small workshop to a thriving business with employees, regular customers, and a reputation that extended far beyond their valley. But more than the financial success, they'd built something that mattered. They'd created jobs for people in town. They'd trained young workers who would carry on the craft. They'd contributed to making the valley a better, more prosperous place. "We should celebrate," Jack said, looking at the accounts. "We've accomplished more than I ever dreamed possible. What should we celebrate?" Lily asked, smiling. "Everything," Jack said. "The business. Our marriage. The fact that we took two broken lives and built something whole and good. That night lying in bed, Lily thought about the girl she'd been 7 years ago. 15 years old, climbing onto a train with all her possessions in a small cloth bag, believing she was worthless because that's what the world had told her. If she could speak to that girl now, what would she say? She'd tell her to hold on, that the pain and the fear wouldn't last forever, that somewhere ahead there was a mountain cabin and a kind man, and a chance to prove her worth. She'd tell her that being called useless didn't make it true. That value comes from inside, from the work of your hands and the strength of your heart. She'd tell her that families aren't just the ones you're born into. They're also the ones you choose, the communities you build, the partnerships you forge.